finish. They have created this one. Let me right click to this one, class, method program. So before going to write their program, first we'll see what is this method and everything. So let me open this paint here. Okay. So here we'll discuss about methods and blocks. So this one is for method, this one is for blocks. Okay. Method and block. When we will see what is method and what is block. Okay. Just give me 1 minute. Okay, so now we'll discuss about this method one and this block one. So if you want to write, for example, if you're creating any class, right? So if you want to add some code, like some logic, for example, we have one calculator, right? Inside this calculator, we have different types of functionality. For example, we have add functionality, we have subtraction functionality, multiplication functionality, right? And division and so on. Okay. So if we are creating any class and we are writing our program into that class, right? So for if you want to add your logic inside this class, I have created this method program class. Inside this method program, if you want to add your logic, okay, so we have different types of uh, approach that can you use. Okay, so we have this method, we have this block, so you can create any method. Inside that method you can add your logic. If you want to create any block, you can create your own block, you can write your own logic. Okay, and then we have different approach also. We can create constructor of those class. Inside that we can write that logic. So after method, block, and that access modifier will in oops when we'll cover the oops, after that we'll discuss the constructor one also. Okay, so if you want to write your logic inside that program, so with the help of these methods and block you can use that. Okay, so now first we'll see the difference between methods and block, and then we'll discuss their programs as well. Okay, so as I've shown you, if you want to like we in calculator we have these functionality: add, subtraction, multiplication and division. So if you want to add something, right, so let me rename this method program. I will write that class name with this one, calculator. Okay, so we have created one calculator class. Inside this calculator class we'll check how can we add any number, how can we subtract that number, how can we multiply two number, how can we divide two number, right? So if you want to add some, if like if you want to add some logic for this addition, for this subtraction, multiplication, how can we do that, right? So this is our main method, right? So our JVM will always will call this main method. So whatever program we have written in our class, how did it will execute? If you have static data, you can use that static data directly in the same class, right? In this calculator class, we have discussed this pass already earlier. And if you have non-static data, it means if you want to access non-static data, what you have to do, you have to create object of this class. After that you will be able to access those non-static data, right? I'm repeating that one. So we have this int n equal to 10. Okay, this one is non-static, this one is non-static data, and we have static int num equal to 100. This one is what? This one is your static data. How can we use static data inside this main method? We can access this static data directly, because for static one we can access this data directly, but for non-static, this n didn't have any static keyword, right? It means it is non-static data. So for access this non-static data, what you have to do, first you have to create object of this calculator class. After that, with the help of that object, you can access this n value, this 10. Okay. Now same for methods. The same concept is applicable for methods as well. So if you have created any addition, for if you have two number, like for example this is not, this one is a, and let me remove this one is your b, and if you want to add these two number, right? So will create one method. That method contain these two number and it will return the addition of these two numbers. So right, so inside this addition method will add some implementation, so it will return these two value, right? So what is the syntax of method, right? So the syntax for creating our own method is, yeah, so let me create one method for this add one, right? So here I have given this add. So when you are creating any variable, right, you have to give that variable name, and that variable type as well. So when we are trying to create any method, so we have there modifier type. So we have different types of modifier. For example, public, private, default, or protected, right? Just after this method and block, we'll see what is this public, private, default, and protected. So when we are trying to create any method, we have to provide what? We have to provide their modifier name. But like, what is the access level of this method? For example, we have created this add method, right? So when we are creating any method, after this add is what? This add is our method name. What is this one? So when you are trying to create any method, you have to add this parenthesis. If you are creating your own method, you have to provide that parenthesis as well. Then your method block starts here. Okay. So before this method name, what we have to add? We have to add this modifier type. This one is nothing, just assume this is for access level, right? So when we are creating any method, so we have to provide whether that method access level is public or private or default or protected. So what is this public, what is this private, what is this default and protected, we'll discuss just after this methods and block. uh, okay. So if we are not writing any access level, either public, private, or protected, by default it is default one. If we haven't written any access modifier, if we haven't written any modifier name, in our method, it means what is their access level? It is default. Okay, and then we have to write their return type. What is this return type? When we'll call this method, right? We have this add method. If we'll call this add method, what will happen here? If it is returning something, we have to return that type of value, right? So in this method, what we have to return? We have to return a plus b. If we have number a and we have number b, and we want to add these two numbers. So at the end, what we want? At the end, we want a plus b. It means it will return which type of value? Integer type of value. So now I am giving their return type as a integer. Okay, now we'll see it is giving one more error here. What type of error? This method must return a result of type int. It is saying here, if we have written this integer return type, right? This one is our method name, this one is our method return type. So when we'll call this add method, it will return some integer type of value, right? Because we want to try, we want to add logic for which one? Addition of two number. So if we'll add these two number, so it will return the sum of these two, right? So we have written this return type as an integer, right? Now after this we have to return some value as well, right? So we if we want to return something, so we you have to use this keyword, return keyword. I have just written here return 0. Now see, error gone here now. Okay, now we'll do what? Now we'll add this a plus b. Okay, so we have added this a plus b, but we have to store that value in somewhere, right? So let me create int sum equal to a plus b. So in sum, what we'll get here? A plus b, right? So they will add a plus b and they will store that value in this sum. Now we'll return this sum value here. Okay, so if we'll call, so what is the method access level? It is default one. Why default? Because we haven't added this public, we haven't added this private, and we haven't added this protected keyword. It means their access level or access modifier is default. Got it? So if we want to call this add method, so this add method is static data or non-static data? Hello, I'm audible to you?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
you are.
Yeah. So this add method, what is the like it is static or non-static data? This add method?
Non-static.
Yes. This add method is non-static. Why? Because we haven't added any static keyword before this method. So if we'll add static method, it means this method is static. Okay, so to access this static method, what we have to do, we can access this add method directly in our main method, because for static we don't have to create any object or anything, right? If it is non-static, if it is non-static, what we have to do, we have to create object of this class. Which class? Calculator class, whatever class we have created. So call calculator obj equal to new calculator. Okay, if we'll call, so if we want to call this add method, what we have to do, we have to write object, whatever object name we have mentioned here, object dot method name. And if you want to access this a, same object dot a, object dot b. Got it? So here obj dot add. So I have just called this add method here. Let me run this program. We got nothing here. Why we got nothing here? It is blank. We have called this add method. Add will do what? They will add a plus b, and they are returning that sum. So when we'll call this add method, it will return sum of these two, right? 100 plus 10, it will return 110. But in output we didn't get anything. Why? Because we haven't printed this one, right? So if we are calling this obj dot add, It means what? When we'll call this add method, it will return some value. So somewhere we have to store that value, right? Or we can do what? We can directly print this obj.add somewhere, right? So inside this system.out.println, we'll call this obj.add method. So whatever value that add method will return, it will print those values inside this, right? So now if we'll run this program, we'll get 110 here. So how internally it works here? So it came to this line, right? And we have already created object of this class because our method is which type of method? Is this one is non-static method, right? So to access non-static method, first what we have to do, we have to create object of this object of our class. We have already done that, right? And if you want to access your method or your variable, so if we have already seen the program of this one, right? If we have any non-static variable a or b, if we want to access this a b, what we'll do? We'll create one object of our class, and then with the help of that object, we can access this, right? So if you want to access a, it means obj dot a, and then again obj dot b. So we'll get this 10, we'll get this 100 here. But now we have created one method here, this add method. Okay, so in this add method will do what? It will add those two number and it will return those number, right? So we have written return type as a integer. Okay, so if we have printed this system.out.println line, inside this one we have called this obj.add. So when we'll call this add method, it will return some integer type of value. So that's why we'll get 110 here, right? Now let me add one more example here. So here we have written return type as a integer. So now you want to do what? Like in the same add method, right? If you don't want to return any value, for example, let me remove this system.out.println here, and you want to call that add method, right? But you don't want to print any line in this main method, right? We'll do what? We'll change this integer to which one? Void one, right? So if you are not returning any value, if your method is not returning any value, what is the return type of that? Void means it returns nothing. Void means it returns nothing. Okay, and if we have like integer or boolean, it means it returns some value. Got it? So if we don't want to return any value, what we'll do? We'll add that system.out.println statement in this inside this add method. So if we'll run this program, it will return that value, right? 110. So we have directly called this method add. Internally, it will come to this line int sum equal to a plus b. They have added those two number inside this sum one, and we have printed this sum, right? So got it? What is the difference between this one and so let me rename this. This one is add one, and this one is add two. The return type is int, and it is returning sum. So let me call. Okay, so this one is add one. This one is obj dot add 2. Okay, so inside this system dot out dot println, let me add this one is what? Add one method. Okay, and this one is okay. So add 2 is returning some value, add 1 is not returning any value, right? So we have to call this add 2 method inside sysout statement. Okay, so this one is your add 2. Got it? Obj dot add 1, not add 1, add 2. Oh, there is one semicolon here. Now if we'll run this program, both method will do the same work. See here, oh, there is one spelling mistake. Add method, let me rerun this program. See, add one also returns sum of this a and b. Add 2 also returns sum of a and b. 100 plus 10, 110. So what is the difference between these two? The difference is in add one. What is the return type of this add one method? Void. So it's not returning anything. So we have called this add one method directly, and they have printed those sum inside this add methods as well, right? But when we'll go for this add two is adding those two number in the sum variable, and it is returning that value same. So if we want to print this add to value, what we'll do, we'll add one sysout statement. Inside the sysout statement, we'll directly call this obj.add2. So it will return the sum of these two number a and b. Got it? So this is your method. So if you have created any method, if you haven't called that method anywhere, it will not execute, right? So if we have created this add one, if we have created this add two, okay, and we haven't called this method anywhere, like we haven't called these line numbers 27 and 28. So we haven't called this obj.add one and obj.add two, right? If we run this program, we didn't get the output. Why? Because just we have created these two methods here, but we haven't called this one. And I already shown you how can we access static and non-static data. Just as you just revise like how you access non-static variable or static variable in primitive data type. We have already shown that one, right? that same that same concept is applicable for non-static and static methods as well. Okay, any doubt on this one? These two method, like how can we access non-static method, how can we access static method, what is return type, what is method name? Okay,
No, sir.
let me add some notes here. So syntax is what? First is access modifier, then return type, then method name. Okay, then we have parameter. What is this parameter, right? So we have created this add one, add two. Let me do one thing, let me remove these two also, and this one. Yeah, so what is this parameter? So you have created this method, right? And we have declared this a and b here. So the requirement is you have different types of value, right? And it is flexible. Sometime you have a contains 1, b contains 2, sometime a contains 10, b contains 15. So for that purpose, if you want to make that method as a dynamic method, dynamic means every time that value will change. So if we are calling this add one method, every time it is adding a and b here, right? So if you want to make your program as a dynamic program, right? So your value will change continuously, right? So if we'll call your method, for example, if we'll call this add one method, it will do what? It will take some argument in parameter. So this one is your parenthesis, right? If you are passing some value inside this parenthesis, for example, uh, we have created this add one method for what? For adding two number, right? So in this parenthesis, we'll pass two argument. Okay, which type? integer type, because we want to add integer type of number. Okay, so int a comma int b. Let me remove the second one so you will get clarity, more clarity. So here I have done some changes. I have added these two argument inside your method parenthesis. I have added these two argument. What is the type of that argument? One is integer, second one is also integer. Got it? Now we'll do what? Let me comment this one. Okay. So in argument, I have passed this integer a, integer b. It means first one is integer value, second one is integer value. We are adding those two value and we are printing this one, right? So when we are calling this add one, right? What we have to do? We have to pass some value. So what is the type of that argument? First one is integer. So we have passed this 10. So 10 is applicable for this one, a. Then b. B is applicable for which one? This 200. Okay, if we'll run this program now, see, we'll get here 210. All right, why 210? Because when we have called this add one, right, we have passed some argument, we have passed some parameter value, right, we have passed some value in this method. So first place we have passed this 10. It means in add one method, what is the data type of first argument? The data type of first argument is integer a. The data type of second argument is integer b. So that's why we have passed these two integer value. Whatever data type your method have, you have to pass that same value. If your data type is integer, you have to pass integer type of value. If your data type is different, you have to pass that value, right? So for in this add one method, we have only two argument. One is integer, second one is also integer. So when we have called this add one method, we have passed these two argument, 10 and 200. So 10 comes to this a, 200 comes to this b. Let me run this program in debug mode, right? Debug as Java application. Okay, now we have called this obj.add1. Let me click to step over next. Now I'll see here, if I'll hover to this a, what is the value of this a? 10. You have passed this 10 here, right? In first place you have passed this 10. When I will hover to this b, b contains this 200. Whatever you have value you have passed in the second place. Okay, so first place we have 10, second place we have 200. It means a contains 10 and b contains this 200 value. Okay, so in sum, if I'll go next, if I'll hover to sum, what is the value of sum? 210. 210 is nothing. 210 is sum of a and b, not this ab. It is the sum of these two, 10 and 200. So if you are trying to add any argument, you can add any argument in your method. Okay, if it is optional, it's not like if you want to create your method without any argument, you can do that. If you want to create any argument, if you want to pass any like more one argument, two argument, three argument, you can do that, right? So this way you can pass any parameter or you can pass any argument in any method. Got it? Any doubt?
No.
Okay, let me go next. Yeah, so we'll get here 2, 1 and 0. Got it? Okay, now, yeah, so let me add some notes here now. So if you want to access your method, what we have to do? If you want to access your method, first you have to call that method, right? then you will be able to access your method, right? Whatever program you have written inside that, after only calling that method, you will be able to execute that program, right? So if you have created any method, if you haven't called this method, it will not execute. So first you have to call that method, then you will be able to see the output. Okay, like in this program, I have created this add one method, right? And I have created object of this calculator, then our object name dot add one method, our method, right? So if we'll comment this program, right, what will happen here? It will not go to this add one. Why? Because we have commented this one. We have only created this add one method, but we haven't called this one. So if you haven't called this add one method from anywhere, you won't be able to get this output like this a plus b, because you haven't called this method, right? Without calling it, you cannot get that output, right? So if we run this program, we get nothing. Why? Because we haven't called this add one method earlier. So if we'll uncomment this, if I'll run again, see, we'll get output here now. Okay, now come to again this here. Yeah. So if you want to access your method, first you have to call that method. Then you will be able to access. Okay. Yeah, for method, I think it is enough. Now we'll move to the block one. What is this block? So in block, we don't like, what is the syntax for creating any block? Block means what? We have this method, right? We have this add one method. Inside this add one, we have created this block, right? That add one method starts with line number 7 to line number 10, right? So the syntax, what is the syntax of this block? So it is very simple. One is opening curly braces, another one is close curly braces. That is your block. So this one is non-static. We have static blocks as well, right? So it is same like non-static. Just before this block, there is one static keyword. So if there is one static keyword before this block, it means that block is static block, that block is not static block, because there is no static keyword inside your braces. So if you have created any blocks, either it is static or non-static, you can create both. For example, this is our add one method, right? So here I am adding one block here, right? So this one is non-static block. What is the difference between non-static data and static data? Can anyone explain? Hello. What is the difference between static and non-static data? Just 5-7 minutes ago, I've explained again. Hello. I'm audible to you. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so the same way that we have discussed in method, that we have discussed in primitive data type, that concept is same for blocks as well. So if we have this block, there is no static keyword, right? It means this one is non-static block. Got it? And if we have created any block, and before this block if we have static keyword, it means that block is static block. Okay, static block. That is the difference between these two. If there is no static keyword, that is non-static. If there is static keyword, that is static. Simple. So if we are creating any add one method, right, we have to call this add one, then we will be able to get this output, right? But how can we call this block, static or non-static, right? So you don't have to call any block. The way you have mentioned your block in your program, they will execute those block according to that. Okay, so I am creating one more class because in this one we have discussed the method, right? We open this method. In the same we are creating one class here. So block program, block program, yeah. So I am creating one block here. Okay, this one is here I am adding one sysout statement, non static block, and I am creating one static block as well. Static block, let me add a static keyword here. Okay, so this upper one is non-static, lower one is static. Okay, and how to access this static and non-static? The same concept will apply in this static or non-static block as well. So if you want to access non-static data, what you have to do, you have to create object of this class, and if you have static data, it means you can access that data directly, right? Let me run this program. See, we got the output static block. We didn't get output for this one non-static block. Why they have printed only static block? Because if we have any static data, JVM will provide first memory to that one, not to non-static one. So if we want to access non-static data, what we have to do? We have to create object. Just we have to create object and nothing. Equal to new block. Got it? Now if I'll run this program, see we got both static and non-static. So first it will go for which one? First it will go for static one. After that it will go for this non-static. So that is the priority, right? So if you have static data and if you have non-static data, both, right? So the what is the priority? First it will go for static one, then it will go for non-static one. That is the priority. Got it? So what is the difference between block and method? So see here, if we are creating any method, we have some method name, right? We have some return type in that method. We have some access modifier like public, protected, default, private, like that, right? But in block, we didn't have any that type of concept. Block is only two type of category. One is static block, another one is non-static block. That's it. So if you are creating any method, what you have to do, you have to call that method, then you will be able to access that app implementation, right? Whatever you have added. So here we have added only sysout statement, right? So in block, we don't have to call it, right? It will execute automatically. So see here, this is static block. We haven't written any code for that. They have executed that program automatically. So blocks program executed automatically. We don't have to call that method, but there is some priority, right? What priority? I'm adding one more static block here. Okay, static block. This one is first. This one is static block 2. This one is non-static block 1. I'm adding one more non-static beneath this one, non-static block 2. Okay. If we'll run this program, so see, first you have written one static, then one non-static, one static, one non-static. So in this order we have written this program, right? If we'll run this program, so first they have printed which one? First they have printed static block, right? So first they have executed this static one, this static one, then it will go for non-static. So the order is this: first static, then non-static. Any doubt in this one, static and non-static block? And what is the order of execution if we have written a static block, if we have written non-static block? Okay,
No
I'll
doubt.
take it as no. Yeah. So now let me show you the difference. So see, we have this static block, we have this non-static block. Now I'm creating one static method and non-static method both. So static return type is void. Okay, or your method name is, for example, m1. All right, I'm adding one sysout statement. So static method m1. Okay, I'm creating one more method, static void m2. No, this one is non-static. Okay, now see, just see this program. This one is your static method, non-static method. This one is your static block, non-static block. So by that program it is specifying here. So just compare this static method with this static block. So in method we have a static keyword as well. Block we have a static keyword as well, right? We have some return type in method, but we didn't have any return type in this block. So that is the difference. In block, we didn't have any return type, but in method, we have some return type. Either it is void or integer or double, whatever. Okay. And we have some method name. So we have created two methods, right? One is M2, one is M1. But we have in this block, we have static and non-static both. There is no block name. If you see here, there is no name. It means in method, we have some identity by their name, right? So I am Amish here. So Amish is specifying what? This is my name. So by my name, this is my identification, right? But there is no identification for the static and non-static block. There is no name. So how can you identify? This one is non-static, right? So we have created two block here, two non-static block. One is this one, other one is this one. So there is no identification for block, right? So that is the difference. Got it? So there is no return type in block. There is no method. There is no block name in block, right? And what is the order of execution? If we have static block, if we have non-static block, if we have static method or non-static method. So first they will execute static block, and then it will go for method, static method, then it will go for non-static block, then it will go for non-static method. But if we have created block, if we have created methods both, so here we have created both, right? If we'll run this program, we'll get output, right? So we'll get output only for block, not for these two method m1 and m2. Why? Can someone explain why we'll get only output for these four? For static block 1, static block 2, non-static block 1, non-static block 2. Why we didn't get output for this m1 and m2 method?
Because we didn't call the method.
Correct. So what is the order of execution? So if we are creating any block, they will execute automatically. We don't have to call that method, right? Sorry, we don't have to call that block. But if we have created any method and we want to execute that method, what we have to do? We have to call that method, right? So this one is static method, so we can access this static directly, right? So we'll write m1 m1, that's it. This way we can call. M2 is what? M2 is non-static. So for calling this M2, obj.m2, right? Because this one is non-static. And how to access non-static data? We have to create object of that class. So obj is our object of this block program. So obj.m2. Now if I'll run this program, we'll get output for both blocks as well as methods as well. So see, what is the order of execution? First they have printed static block, then they have printed non-static block, then they have printed this. Oh, sorry, I have added that same statement right here. Non-static m2. Let me rerun this program. Yeah. So first they have printed static, correct? Then they have printed non-static block. Then they have printed static method. Then they have printed non-static method. So order of this. So order of method execution depends on your method call. So first we have called this m1 method. That's why they have printed this m1 here. After that we have called this m2. So they have printed this m2 here, right? So let me do one thing. Let me call m2 first and later we'll call m1, right? See, what is the output first? M2. So it depends on your method call. So if you have created method m1 and method m2 and you have called m2 first, m1 later, right? So they will execute that program in that order. Whatever order you have called that method, in same order they will execute that program. Got it? And for static and non-static, they will create execute static then non-static. Let me do one thing. So see here, we have created this static method, non-static method. So after that I am adding this block, static block, non-static block, static block, non-static block. Now I'm running this program, right? See here, again they have printed the static block first, then non-static block, then last they have printed these two methods. Got it? So always your block will execute first, then it will go for a static block, a static method, then it will go for non-static method. So any doubt on this static block, non-static block, or a static method or non-static method?
No.
Okay. So let me add some notes here. So if you want to access your method, first you have to call that method. Then, okay, there is one spelling. Just assume this one is you. You will be able to access it, right? Let me add some different notes as well. Yeah, right. Okay. So first one, blocks, or I will create. Okay, go down. I will create one more box here. Black, then text box, text box, red. Okay, first one. So blocks execute automatically. Correct? Whereas methods will not execute automatically. Got it? Is clear? So if we have static block or non-static block, it will execute automatically. We don't have to call that block. It will execute automatically. But if we have created any method, so we have to call that method, then it will execute, right? Let me add second one. So we have to call that method. Then we will be able to get the output. Okay. Blocks didn't have any identity. Okay, so blocks didn't have any identity, but method have what? Their name, return type, access modifier, like that, right? So we have these property in method, but in blocks didn't have any identity, but method have name, the return type, their access modifier, like that, right? Any doubt on this one? And blocks will execute the way or order we have mentioned in our program, right? As I have shown you here, the way we have ordered. So first we have added this static method, static block one, then non-static block one, static block two. So first they will execute this one, right? So the way we have mentioned. So first we have added this one, so they have printed the static block one, then they have printed the static block two, then non-static block one, then non-static block two. Got it? So the way we have mentioned in our program from top to bottom. It will follow which approach? From top to bottom approach. Got it? Now, second one, methods. So methods will execute the way we have called that method, right? So if we have method m1, if we have method m2, so if we have called m2 first, m1 second, so they will execute m2 first, m1 second. And if you have called m1 first, m2 second, they will execute m1 and then m2. Got it? Like this one. So first we have called this m2, then m1. It is fine. So the way we have called for method, the way we have called that method, it will execute on that way. And what is for the block? The way we have mentioned, the way the order, like first what is the order of this one? First we have this one, then this one. So in this approach they will execute top to bottom approach. Got it? Okay, so order of execution is what? First static block, then non static block, then static method, then non static method. Find it out on these four topic, these 4 points that I have been written, that difference between static and non-static block. Okay, so now let me add that program also. So I'm removing that to, yeah, static, and non-static. That's it. Copy. Let me copy only this.